Let's not think that the solution to this problem is going to come from outside. Not from the United Nations, not from the AU, not from Washington, not from Paris, not from London. We Cameroonians have to get our acts together, come up with a blueprint of what we want. If we're all rally around it, then we can use that to take towards the UN and say, this is what we, the Cameroonian people, want. Or if you like, we, the Southern Cameroonians, want on this particular issue. And when they see that what we are proposing is reasonable and something that they can support, then they will throw their weight behind it. They are not going to be the ones to come and define the solution for us. And I said at that conference that from that perspective, separation is out of the question.
Won't you think that it should be the place of the international community to say, okay, some Cameroonians, they say they want independence, and some say they want a one and indivisible country. Why not say, let's give them a referendum, let them decide? How do you think about that, sir?
In reality, we have to come to peace in the first place and then start a constitutional process in Cameroon or something like that. I mean, this is not a solution which comes from outside. This is the Cameroonian people have to decide, and the local people have to decide how they want to live and what constitution they want to have in the future. So, and there's a saying, African problems should have African solutions. And sometimes I think, what is the role of African Union? What is the role of ECOWAS in this Cameroon conflict? I'm not quite sure about that. I don't know too much about it, but maybe you can give me some information on that.
I get extremely frustrated when I hear from the Cameroonian community that they are waiting for the international community to solve the problem. And I keep telling people the brutal truth is that the international community is not going to solve the problem.
Well, I guess the message is now settling down amongst most Amazonians because we see what is going on in Ukraine.
The Biafran War was resolved in Nigeria because it was about Nigeria. The Cameroonian crisis should be resolved in Cameroon because it's a Cameroonian crisis. But let me say this.
Let's not think that the solution to this problem is going to come from outside. Not from the United Nations, not from the AU, not from Washington, not from Paris, not from London. We Cameroonians have to get our acts together.
May I say that what I understand about British politicians is that they do not care about your history. They're not interested. They don't want to hear people from Amazonia talking about what happened in 1960 and 1961. They're not interested.
Why do you think they're not interested?
I know they're not interested because I'm British and I mix with politicians all the time.
Right. Do you see any motivation, any particular motivation behind their action?
No, it is very important that you hear what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
They are not interested in your history. They are not interested in listening to people from your country getting very angry. And every time that one of your politicians gets extremely angry with the British, it is self-defeating. You are not going to win their sympathy. What you need to do is talk about today and the future, because they are simply not interested. You are wasting your breath if you talk about the history of 1961, because they don't want to know. It embarrasses them.
Is this because they were part of it and they failed in that assignment? Could that be the reason?
It's also, yes, part of the reason, but also the British are not interested in their colonial history because it is embarrassing to them.
Wow, that is quite revealing. That is quite very, very revealing. Now,
let's not think that the solution to this problem is going to come from outside. Not from the United Nations, not from the AU, not from Washington, not from Paris, not from London. We Cameroonians have to get our acts together, come up with a blueprint of what we want, if we all rally around it, then we can use that to take towards the UN and say, this is what we, the Cameroonian people, want. Or if you like, we, the Southern Cameroonians, want on this particular issue. And when they see that what we are proposing is reasonable and something that they can support, then they will throw their weight behind it. They are not going to be the ones to come and define the solution for us. And I said at that conference that from that perspective, separation is out of the question. Because for you to have separation and independence, there are only two pathways. One is diplomatic. In other words, you convince the countries of the world at the UN to support you. But I reminded my compatriots at that conference that it is through the UN that it's under the auspices of the UN that our people voted on the 11th of February to achieve independence by joining the Republic. It is under the auspices of the UN that the post-reunification, the post-plebiscite conferences were held leading up to October 1st, 1961. And all this while, the UN has taken cognizance of the fact that since 1st of October 1961, the former British administered UN Trust Territory of Southern Cameroons ceased to have that status. And by the way, the trusteeship agreement between the United Nations and the United Kingdom over this territory that was signed in 1946 or 1947 ended. That's an agreement between the UK and the UN for the administration of SC, Southern Cameroons. It ended once Southern Cameroons opted to achieve independence by joining La République. So, who in the international community are you going to convince that the work of decolonizing Southern Cameroons was not completed? Who? So I argued that based on that, it is futile to say that you are going to pursue independence by diplomacy. And when Julius Ayuk Tape and others started flying around here, acting like head of state already, you see him arrive at the airport in Washington or New York with a cortege of bodyguards and drivers and all of that to say a diplomatic offensive. I just laughed. I laughed. This was a show. He wasn't going to lead anywhere. You know? So that part of independence by diplomacy, I argued, and I still argue, was a no-go. It wouldn't lead anywhere. Therefore, if you insist that you have to get independence, know that because that involves breaking up an existing country called Cameroon, the rest of Cameroon is not going to allow you to go to walk out just like that. You come and say, oh, okay, look, after you guys have been trying to assimilate us, we're tired of this, we're walking out. They wouldn't let you go. You know, they will resist, and if they resist, then remember, know then that independence can only be by war. But if you elect that path, then remember that war has its consequences. And I'm talking as someone who, in my UN career, worked in many conflicts and post-conflict countries. I saw it with my own eyes, what devastation war can cause. And I would have preferred to save my own country and every part of it such an experience. And that's what I tried to do from 2017